day, feel it melt away, where time cannot find me at all. Just a breath away, nothing here but heaven, nowhere but love to fall as I go within. Quiet peace offers something sacred. There's a sweetness that waits, holiest embrace that reminds me I am always home as I go within. Quiet peace offers something sacred. There's a sweetness that waits, holiest embrace that reminds me I'm always home. It's here that I am always home.
Thank you, Aria. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Welcome. Welcome to the Wednesday evening Going Within service. So very glad to have you here this evening. It's an opportunity for you to just take a break midweek and pause, let go of anything that's occurred during the week, and just allow yourself to be fully present right here and right now in this moment. What we like to do is we take about the first 15 minutes for meditation. So we'll be going into the silence, and just allow yourself to soak it up and breathe in and enjoy. To start us off this evening, we have our practitioner, Trudy Seidke.
Well, good evening. So I invite you at this time to just relax for a moment and recognize that you made it. You are here. And yes, December is here, and yes, we are entering into what I call high holy season, but nonetheless, let us just turn within, where we've heard that the still small voice resides, and allow yourself to really feel a sense of peace that God is, a sense of knowing that the one source, the divine mind, this source expresses as compassion, grace, and tranquility. And just allow this peace to wash over you, recognizing there is no separation, never any division between you and Source. And so as I recognize this, I simply immerse myself in a symbol of unity with God. And I know this to be so. And as a peaceful way, we open up tonight's service, and it is done with ease and with beauty, with preparedness, and with a gift for each of you, if you are willing to receive. And for this knowledge, I am blessed, and I am grateful to just have the opportunity to pray and know that I am loved just the way I am. So, Father, Mother, God, I just know this evening is doing its magic unto us, and we welcome each and every one of you. And so it is. Well, hello, I'm Trudy Seidke, and it just looks lovely in here, doesn't it? Look at all this warmth around me. I feel beautiful. Well, anyway, I invite you, who's that laugh? I invite you to stay tonight afterward for prayer, as myself and I'm sure other practitioners here would be glad to listen to you. Just listen. What's going on with you? Good, bad, indifferent? Because our sole joy as practitioner is to just know the truth for you, not to change what you're going through, but to perhaps lift and support you as you move through your experiences in life. And if you haven't yet, I would invite you to come and light a candle, perhaps keeping in mind someone who is a loved one of yours or even your beautiful self this evening. When you light your candle, perhaps think of that. And we have beautiful Arya who will lead us in our meditation, and then she will also lead us back out. So enjoy.
Send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. It returns to me. for peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it's in giving that we receive, and it's in pardon that we are pardoned, and it's in dying that we are born to eternal life. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it's in giving that we receive, and it's in pardon that we are pardoned, and it's in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
I cannot be the only one that during the course of the week I hear songs and I sing along. But when I hear this song, especially sung by Aria, it just resets and realigns me so much. I know I can't be the only one that feels that way. Tonight, our talented Reverend Debbie will be talking about living the grace of love. And I have a story for you before I read the journal. And it has to do with this time of year and just reflecting on when I remembered being a second grade teacher. And every day I'd go and learn from the kids. It's pretty much a good deal, and I got a paycheck too. But one of them, one day, and one of the stories I remember so well was, there's several holiday stories, but this particular one is called The Crippled Lamb. And if you've heard it, I'm paraphrasing. And I won't read it all, but I'd like you to get a flavor of the style. Once upon a time, in a sunny valley, there lived a little lamb named Joshua. He was white with black spots, black feet, and sad eyes. Josh felt sad, and he saw the other lambs with snow-white wool and no spots. He also felt sad when he saw the other lambs running and jumping because he couldn't. See, Josh had been born with a leg that didn't work right. Now, as I was reading this story to the kids, usually after lunch when there's a mixture of smell of peanut butter sandwich and that kind of Play-Doh smell that kids get after lunch, kind of that, blah. One of the kids yelled out, "Hey, Mrs. Seifke, that's just like my younger brother," said Alex. And I said, yes, it is, you're right. Yeah, he's in kindergarten, and He can't walk good. So it got kind of quiet, and I continued to read the story. But you could hear a pin drop because the kids were now engaged. This was someone they knew who had a brother like this. See, Joshua in the story had also a friend, Abigail, the cow. She had a big belly, and she had spots too. So they kind of hung out together. Now, as the story progresses, what happens is we find out that the meadow has almost been eaten bare where they are located. And so they need to walk further to a more bountiful one. And the shepherd, although he has great care and love for Joshua, he says, you're going to have to just stay behind tonight and spend the night in the stable. Well, much later in the story, we find out that this stable, in walks Mary and Joseph to have Jesus, the newborn infant. And there's talk in the stable. This talk is all about keeping the baby warm. How are we going to keep this baby warm? But Joshua has a cure, an idea, and he timidly walks over to lay down with the baby and keep the baby warm. So this tender love that God has for us about feeling alone or different, it doesn't really exist. I mean, we make ourselves feel alone. And through grace, this little boy in my classroom really just sparkled up about it, about his brother. But what happened next in this little reading circle, I wasn't prepared for. Because one of the boy's best friends, he put his arm around Alex, and he said, I bet you're a great older brother. And then another child did the same, and another, and another. I always learned so much from my class during those days, and that day was no exception at all. But I had an idea, and so the next Friday afternoon I knew was buddy reading. That's a big deal. That's where the older kids come and read to the younger kids. Big deal. It's a big deal to those guys. So I asked Alex if he wanted to read that book, during buddy time, because it's a special book. And he says, that sounds good, I'll do that. But what he didn't know is I also contacted the teacher of Alex's younger brother, the kindergartner. And I asked if he and a small group from his class could surprise his older brother and come out to listen to this special story. And then I let go. Just let it go. I let the grace of the divine just take over. And that Friday afternoon, I didn't proctor the group, but I could see from a distance the smile on the older brother's face as he read the story to the group with his little brother in the group. And at the end, something interesting happened. Beautiful. You could hear cheering. Yay! I look over, and the kindergartners are all just mauling the little boy, and the brother's smiling. And they were arm in arm, and I really did smile. So I will always remember those boys. I suspect they're kicking it at about age 16 now, but they were little once. And as pleasant as that grace can show up in our journal, in our reading tonight, it refers to grace as a way to forgive and to move past. So what it says is divine grace, which is Spirit's givingness, is always percolating just below the surface. It invites you to give and forgive. Even when part of you wants to withhold or hang on to the hurt or the resentment, your rational mind doesn't always know what to do with this. There's no question that it's important from a psychological point to develop healthy boundaries and not enable others. We're familiar with those terms. And to speak up when something isn't okay. However, there is a place of spiritual living that sees through the foibles of other to the truth of their essence. The namaste, right? The God that sees them. The God in you that sees the God in them. This is especially important, it writes, during the holidays as we manage all of our family obligations. Rather than falling into the same old arguments, it suggests, or relationship dynamics, we might simply allow grace to bubble up, take over. A more compassionate, a kinder way of engaging in the world. It can emerge without effort, just love, no force. And allow love to spring forth throughout this holiday season. And with that, I turn it over to our lovely and talented Reverend Debbie.
Thank you, Trudy. Thank you. So that's the reading from Joyous Abundance Journal that we'll be finishing up the rest of this month with in today's reading of December 2nd. December 2nd, that's amazing in itself, isn't it? Here we are in the holiday mode. So, living the grace of love. Interesting idea. What does that mean? Living the grace of love. And then what Trudy read, about how do we practice all this during the holidays with our families and our friends and our loved ones and our work associates, wherever we have a group of people that gather together. We tend to create those same dynamics that we had in our house, it seems like. And George Burns has a quote that I love, and I'll start with this. He says, "Happiness is a large, loving, close-knit family that lives in another city." Right? Maybe another state. And I know that there's people that move far away so they don't have to be around their family or deal with their family and be part of all of the family happenings, And I think most of you know I come from a very large Italian Catholic family. That's my background. And we just had Thanksgiving with just a few of us, and that was 22. That's a small group for us. We're usually much larger, but not everybody could make it this year. And then we look forward to the Christmases. Years ago, my mother decided she would not do Christmas on Christmas Day because she wanted us all to be there. So she picked a whole nother day. And we do Christmas on the day that she picks. Christmas is usually the weekend after, because she didn't want us going to in-laws and she didn't want us leaving. She's this Italian mama who cooks a lot of food and we need to stay there all day and eat it, right? From beginning to end. And, and growing up, when I was younger, the holidays looked really different than they do now, and I'm sure that's true for most of us. The holidays for me are a happy time. And I know that's not true for everybody. For some people, it's really a challenge to move through this month of December, from Thanksgiving all the way through. For some people, it's a time of loneliness and a time of sadness. But for my family, it was a time of happiness because I jokingly say, but it really was the truth, it was the one time that everybody pretended that they liked each other. Christmas Day was fun. Mom and Dad acted like they were in love and everything was beautiful. And we as children knew for a lot of years there was stuff that wasn't really going on that was so great. But at the Christmas time, we all enjoyed it, and we had that happy time. And so for me, I have happy memories of Christmas, and I continue to do a lot of the same traditions with my children and my family as we moved through the holidays. But living this grace of love is an interesting concept when we apply it to our families. We have so many movies that are made about the dysfunctional families in the holidays, and we have stories, and we have books, and we have, a lot of jokes about the family and what it's like. But the truth is how can we move into a more healthy way of being with our families? How can we move into a place of being that grace of love when we're with our friends and loved ones? How can we detach from the personalities and the things that happen around the holiday table, whatever holiday you celebrate, whether it's Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or the traditional Christmas holiday, whatever it is, whatever that place is for you, how can you participate and be part of that and stay with good boundaries, like Trudy said, and not give yourself away and stay in that place of love and not be triggered by those that put the buttons in, How do we do that? And so what this journal to me is saying today is that we can practice this idea of living the grace of love. And what is grace? I guess that's the thing that really had the biggest question for me today in looking at this. And what is God's grace? And we hear about that a lot. We hear about the grace of God. Therefore, it is done to you by God's grace. What does that mean? What is God's grace? In the traditional Christian background, it was something that you had to earn. It was something that you had to earn to get to heaven. And if you didn't earn it, you were out of luck, So luckily here in religious science, we don't have that belief about grace, right? We believe that grace is something that is freely given to all of us without any charge. We don't have to do anything to earn it. It is just the givingness of Spirit, as Trudy said in the reading. It is the givingness of Spirit. It is that which Spirit wants to do for us, for fun and for free. There's no strings attached. We can all receive God's grace. Our only job is to open to receive. The only job that we have in this whole process of receiving grace is to open to receive. Ernest Holmes says, this is in the glossary of the Science of Mind. He says, grace is the givingness of spirits to its creation. Correct. Grace is, but we need to recognize it. It is not something God imposed upon us, but is the logical result of the correct acceptance of life and of the correct relationship to Spirit. We are saved by grace to the extent that we believe in, accept, and seek to embody the law of good. For the law of good is ever a law of liberty and never one of limitation. So Ernest, wrote in the vernacular of the time, of the 1930s, and so some of it's a little bit more complicated wording than I think that it needs to be. But for that time, that's the way that people spoke. And so for me, today I would say that grace is that free gift. It's that free gift from God. It's the givingness of Spirit. And we don't have to do anything to earn it. We don't have to be a certain way. We don't have to act a certain way. We don't have to show up a certain way. We don't have to be good enough. We don't have to do good deeds. We simply live in that grace of the divine. I came across this book that I just love, and it's written by two Quaker ministers. And the book is called If Grace is True. And the title attracted me, If Grace is True. And from their Christian perspective, or the Quakers' perspective, these two ministers were troubled by the idea that grace was something that had to be earned, and that grace was something that had to be earned for your salvation. It was a question that was prickling at them and nudging at them, and they weren't comfortable with it, and it wasn't making sense to them any longer. They tell the story of a woman named Sally, a woman who had started off her life by being given and tossed aside to relative to relative to relative. Her mother had died at a very young age, and her father couldn't care for her. And she had 2 children, and then the husband left her. And then she turned to drugs and alcohol and had 2 more children. And so by the time this Quaker minister had met Sally, she was a single mother with 5 children and a drug addict. And that's how she came to know, how he came to know Sally. And what happened is that Sally passed suddenly from a heart attack, and he was asked to do the memorial service for Sally. And this minister really caused within him to seek and look at how could he do a memorial for this woman who he didn't think had earned salvation, who he didn't think had received this grace from the divine. And what he found as he started to do the background that we as ministers will do if we're doing a memorial for somebody, is what he found is that he didn't know Sally at all. He knew the story of her in those younger years and her boys and what had happened there, but he did not know that the last 5 or 6 years of her life were the happiest years of her life. That she had what he calls had salvation, And the word salvation means a turning, that she had a turning to a new way of life. She had gotten clean and sober. She had gotten a job. She had done things that were on her path to growing, her soul's growth. And one of the things that her son said to the minister as he was preparing for this memorial service was that the last thing that my mother said to me was that she was looking for a church. So this minister had this realization that he did not know her at all. And how would God or spirit or source condemn this woman? Why would she not have the same grace that we all have? And so they wrote this book. He teamed with another Quaker minister, and they began to write the book. And it's a very interesting book. It's based in Christian tradition. But it's a very beautiful book, and it's a very true, heartfelt example of these two men really questioning, the things that I think many of us that come into religious science question. How can there be a God who's all loving yet judges us? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't equate for us. So we come to this place where we know that God is good, and God is love and only love, and that God's grace is available to all. These two ministers have this definition of grace. They say grace is God's unfailing commitment to love. I like that. Grace is God's unfailing commitment to love. And salvation, they have the definition of being freed in every obstacle to intimacy with God. Being free. And Ernest talks about that, the law of freedom. The law of freedom. That we have that. And so how are this living the grace of love, how is grace and love separate or different from each other? Because isn't love the givingness of the Spirit? And grace is the givingness of the Spirit. So in fact, grace and love are the very same thing. They are synonymous. They're not separate from, they're not different. They're not something, again, that we need to earn. They just are. It is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. That love that just moves. It's the self-givingness of Spirit. It's that expression of Spirit. Oftentimes in the 12-step community, there's a saying that is said that therefore, but the grace of God go I. There, but for the grace of God go I. And what that means is it's a reminder that except for the grace of God, I too could be still addicted. I too could still be that practicing alcoholic. But because of the grace of God has entered my life in a way that is no longer me. But it is available to each alike. But it's a reminder that not I, but the Father within doeth the work. And that's what we mean by the grace of God, that grace of God that enters our life, animates us. Every cell of our being is the grace of the divine, is the grace of God, is the love of God. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science in our beautiful Science of Mind textbook, says this about love. And this is I think it kind of sums up our philosophy in just two little paragraphs here. In an intelligent study of the teachings of the science of mind, we come to understand that all is love, and yet all is law. Love rules through law. Love is the divine givingness. Grace is the divine givingness. Love is the divine givingness. Law is the way, love is spontaneous. Law is impersonal. We should study the nature of reality with this in mind, and in this way we shall avoid two grave mistakes, either viewing life as made up only of mechanical laws or viewing it as made up only of spontaneous actions in respective of law and order. Love points the way, and law makes the way possible. We hear that a lot. In a 1993 article in the Science of Mind magazine, you can go, I've talked to you about the archives before, the Science of Mind archives. You can go online and you can just put in any word and you can get anything that we have in our archives that has been written about that. There was an article written in the 1933 magazine that said The Law of Grace. That was the title of the article, The Law of Grace, and it was written by a practitioner from Agape. And in it, she talks about the concept of grace as a spiritual principle of divine love, which we experience in our life to the extent that we are receptive to it, just like Ernest said. And she wrote this article in response to that thing that sometimes happens in religious science. I don't know if you've experienced, but you might have an illness or a cold or somebody, and somebody will come up to you and say, "What did you do to create that cold?" And that's just something that doesn't need to be said to somebody, for one. They're very aware of what it is they've done, and in that moment, we certainly don't want to stop and think about what it is that we did that created that. But what we want to know is that the law of grace supersedes the law of cause and effect. Now, the law of grace is that grace is always present no matter what. She goes on to say that I'm always relieved at the unearned facet of the concept of grace. The idea of grace is that we do not have to earn God's love. Absolutely. We do not have to earn God's love for free. So how do we practice this spiritual principle with our friends and families? What do we do when we show up for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever that is that we're showing up for, and good old Aunt Betsy is there that really rubs us the wrong way, How do we practice this? The good news is that we don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything at all. We just have to open to receive. Open to receive that grace that is forever present. To just turn within in that moment and remember that God is present right here and right now in this moment always. There's never a moment that God is not. And that grace and that love can move through you. And the grace that moves through you and the love that moves through you, in fact, moves mountains. In fact, changes things. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to make it happen. We don't have to stop it from happening. We don't have to do anything but be that love. Open to receive that love. Open to be in the presence, to recognize the presence, to know that the presence is there. Charles Fillmore, who's the founder of Unity with his wife Myrtle, he has a book that's titled Teach Us to Pray. And he talks about this principle of us really not having to do anything. He talks about love as being the harmonizing factor. Thine harmonizing love is mine, and I am restored to peace and health. Divine love, like a magnet, changes my mind and prospers my affairs. Just so divine love or grace harmonizes relationships. I encourage you over the next few weeks to just practice. To just practice when you get in that place where it doesn't feel so comfortable. To just turn within and remember that God's grace is sufficient to all of your needs. That Spirit's grace, that Source's grace, that creative intelligence of the universe is fully present in your life in every moment, moving in, through, and as you. And that divine grace and that divine love is there for you. All that you need to do is open to receive it. So God bless you. God bless you. Glad that you're here this evening. I'm going to invite Arya to do a song for us.
This is a great one for the holidays. When you're there with your family, pretending to like each other. You can play the game, you can act out the part, but you know it wasn't written for you. But tell me, how can you stand there with your broken heart, ashamed of playing the fool? One thing can lead to another, doesn't take any sacrifice. Oh, father and mother, sister and brother, if it feels nice, don't think twice. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out that you cannot hide. This is widely known. What you plan to do with your foolish pride when you're all by yourself and alone? Won't you tell somebody the way that you feel? You can feel it beginning to ease. I think it's true what they say about the squeaky wheel, always getting the grease. Better shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be just fine if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Things are gonna be much better if you only will.
Shower the people you love with love. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Aria. Jim's out this week, so Aria's double duty in it. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's the time of our service for our offering. It's the time that we get to practice another principle that we have here, the law of reciprocity, that principle that as we give, we receive, and that we can't outgive God, as Christian always says. We can try, but we just can't, you know, and the more that we give, the more that we receive, and it is a spiritual principle, like all the others that we talk about here, that just works. It is the law. So I'll ask our ushers to come forward. Dennis and Karen, thank you very much for being here this evening. It's good to see all of you. Good. So it's just with thanks, great thanks, that I give thanks for all that is, just knowing that there's an absolute abundance that flows in and through and as each and every individual here, knowing that abundance flows through Seaside, and that all of the activities that we do here at Seaside continue to be sourced from the divine. So grateful for it all. We just let it be, and so it is. And will you just join me in our prosperity prayer? As I give thanks for the good now flowing into my life, I gladly share that good with others. The more I give, the more I receive. I experience a deeper consciousness of peace and security, for I know that I am in the embrace of a warm, loving presence, forever seeking an outlet through me. My cup runneth over. I exist in limitless possibilities. Thank you. Thank you. I just have a few announcements this evening before we close up. We have a few things going on for the holidays, so let me try to remember them all. This Saturday at 10 a.m. is our final Death Cafe. We've had a series throughout the year of Death Cafes, and this is the final one for a while. It's a group that comes together. It's very casual. There's no cost. You can go on their website and learn more about it, but it's really a place to come together and talk about death and dying, a subject that we don't often talk about. So that's this Saturday morning. Then on Sunday evening of this week at 6 p.m. is our annual remembrance service. If you have a loved one that you would like to remember during this season, please come and be part of it. It's a very casual, informal affair led by Dr. Christian. Bring a photo of your loved one, and you have an opportunity to say a few words about them and join in prayer together to remember anybody that you might be missing at this time of year. Then we have, in 3 weeks from tonight, we won't be having Wednesday night service because it's our annual candlelight service. So if you've been to our candlelight service, you know it's a big deal. We open the wall. We're full all the way to the back. Get here early. It'll be different than a regular Wednesday night service led by Dr. Christian and all the ministers at Seaside. And we light the candles for all the seasons. So come and be part of that. And then the following week is December 30th. We won't be having Wednesday night service because Dr. Christina Tillotson will be doing her Burning Bowl service on December 31st, which is Thursday night. So know that's coming up for our Wednesday night services. Reverend Lori will be here next week with the gift of love. We'll be here to talk. I want to thank everybody that has made Wednesday night possible. Thank you, Vicki, for opening the bookstore, holding the light. She's doing double duty. Great holiday gifts in the bookstore. We brought in some extra things for you. So if you're looking for anything, thank you, Trudy, for assisting this week and filling in. Aria for the music, always beautiful. Ginny, Dennis, thank you. Ginny for being our Wednesday night coordinator. Melanie for sound. Gregory for the podcast. Thank you very much for filming it and bringing it out into the world. We truly appreciate that. You know, doesn't our stage look great, as Trudy said? All the decorations. Well, Reverend Lori Mack's Sacred Circle group, headed up by Miss Donna St. James here, decorated it for us. So let's give her a hand. It looks very beautiful. Very beautiful. Thank you very much. Now is a time for prayer. So just bring anybody into your mind that you might want to hold in prayer, have put into this vortex of love, yourself, your family, the people that tonight in San Bernardino, and yet another shooting spree, remembering all those and their families. So just turning within, knowing and feeling and sensing that one power and that one presence that is God, that is good, that is love and only love, light and only light. I know that spirit is all that there is, that there is nothing, absolutely nothing but the divine, that God is in, through, and as all things. And I know that I am one with this love. And just as I know this is true for me, I know it's true for each one here. I know that each one is a magnificent, individualized expression of the divine. Perfect, whole, and complete right here and right now. And I know for each one that this sacred time is divinely guided and divinely protected. That each one lives and breathes and has its very being in the divine. That there is love and light surrounding and leading and guiding. I know for each individual that has put a prayer in our prayer request chest that it is answered. That there's a healing going on, there's an unfolding going on, there's an expansion going on. I know for our beloved Attila and for his wife Lisa, that as they move through this time, moving into that next journey of their lives, that the change is a blessing, that they are surrounded by love and friends, that they are given all that they need in this moment. I know for my dear dad that as he moves through these challenges in his physical world, that he's at peace. And for all the family, as they gather around to support and to love. And anybody else here in our Seaside community that needs our love and support, I know that it is there for them right here and right now. Through this time of light, this season of light, this season of love, I know that Seaside is that place of light, that is that place of love. That it is a place of refuge, it is a place of safety, it is a place of peace for all those that are called here. I am so grateful to know this truth. I'm so grateful to know that Spirit is sufficient unto all of my needs. It's with that sense of absolute gratitude that I just simply release these words into the divine nature of the law, knowing that it is already done, and so it is. Good. You join me in the closing song?
Love is It's up to me to give up my heart. Love is my decision, and no one else can tell me to start. Oh, and once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to dance down that road. Love is my decision, and no one else can lighten my load. Once I decide to change my mind, love will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. My decision right here and now.
God bless you. Have a beautiful week. Join us for refreshments in the family room.
God, you are every mountain. God, you are every ocean. God, you are every canyon, every inch of earth and sky. God, you are every morning. God, you are every midnight. God, you are every moment, every second of my life. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you. God, you are every sunrise. God, you are every moon glow. God, you are every star shine, every inch of earth and sky. God, you are every springtime. God, you are every snowfall. God, you are every season, every second of my life. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you. Ta-da!